Greetings, fellow thinkers and drinkers, and once again, Deep Purple fans. Well, in two recent videos, I have discussed two Deep Purple remixes of prior albums. And in very basic terms, it was thumbs up for one, being the recent Rapture of the Deep remix, and, to put it bluntly, I suppose, thumbs somewhat down for the recent Made in Japan remix. Although it is not all negative, and please watch that particular video. I do explain myself in some detail. So, yeah, one of each, shall we say. So, I thought it'd be nice if we could go for a decider. Make it a best of three, so to speak. Fortunately, or not, the material is available, released in 2024, a Super Deluxe edition of Made in Japan, Machine Head, remixed by Dweezil Zappa, amongst other things, which, if nothing else, does give us something to talk about. Okay, it has to be Machine Head, I suppose. It is their Paranoid, it is their Led Zeppelin 4, it is their Moving Pictures. Is it their best album? Well, by what objective measure? It's not my personal favorite, even if we restrict it to the 70s. That will probably always will be Fireball. But it is obvious why Machine Head is the one that keeps being remastered, remixed, or getting the re-release treatment. It is the big one, the one everybody is familiar with. Okay, my own personal purchase history with this seminal release. I had the LP back in the day. This Machine Head was one of the very first CDs I bought back in what must have been the very early 90s. Having heard so much about how the CD technology is going to revolutionize the listening experience, how nothing has ever sounded better, I have to say, I was not impressed. Not only with Machine Head, but even a couple of things I bought around that time that were new releases at the time. This was, well, just wasn't that different, wasn't that special, really, was it? But I think, in particular reference to the initial Machine Head CD pressing, well, it sounded flat and lifeless, and I suppose in hindsight that's probably down to a poor EQing or minimal care in transferring the original analog material into the digital environment. I'm not a technician, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But the result is it was muddy. It lacked clarity. It didn't have particular bite or punch to it. Sounded a bit flat, and that was that for quite a long time. Well, up until about 1997. Which, looking back, doesn't seem that long. Did at the time. Now, Machine Head in 1997 turned 25. And as had happened since in rock, the Roger Glover oversaw the remastering for the anniversary editions of In Rock, Fireball, and now in 97, Machine Head. The 25th anniversary editions. These are excellent releases, well packaged, care and attention obviously given to them, and they sounded bloody good. Particularly Fireball had a lot of extra material that was recorded around the time. Probably the last time that would happen. But yeah, and he did no less a job on Machine Head. And what we actually got at the time is that this was a double CD release. The others had just been single CDs. And in reverse order, the second disc was a remaster. Overseen, I think, as well, by Roger Glover. It's really, I mean, if we're comparing this to the original CD that I had, this is a huge improvement. It really is. It's brighter. It has more clarity. Yeah, it seems to live in a wider sonic spectrum. There's more separation between the instruments, and therefore there's more definition. Everything sounds particularly well balanced. The drums, I think, sounded almost like drums. They feel less swallowed up in the mix. But it had a certain warmth to it that perhaps the original mix didn't. It was also perhaps a little dry, a little clinical, a little harsh. And they'd also included, after the original run of 7 songs, the When a Blind Man Cries, which was fine. It's nice to have it. Wasn't on the original album. Whether it should have been or shouldn't is not a conversation I'm going to get into now. But it did round out the Machine Head sessions. So there was quite a lot of stuff recorded for Fireball that didn't make the record. On this occasion, it was simply When a Blind Man Cries. Now, this remaster had a couple of extra songs, namely Maybe I'm a Leo and Lazy, which are, allegedly, quadraphonic remixes. Which is interesting. Historically, for back in the early 70s, there was a quadraphonic mix of Machine Head released. But if you don't have the equipment to play it on, well, I guess you're going to be missing out on something. Yes, if you play these 2 songs, there are differences, perhaps more so on Lazy than maybe I Am a Leo. Yeah, well, okay. It's interesting, we'll say. We'll just leave it at that, shall we? The first disc, however, was the original album plus When a Blind Man Cries, but remixed by Roger Glover. Differences are apparent. There are extended solos, extended intros, solos, fade-outs. Yes, you can tell it's different. Are things... Say it was remixed. Are things louder? Yes, I think they are. It's sharper around the edges, I think. It does have more bite. The drums snap a lot more. Yeah, it's different to the remaster. It most certainly is. The guitar, it cuts through more, as does Gillan's voice. Sounds fuller, sounds richer almost. It breathes more. It's less of a boxy sound. It has more dynamic range to it. And it gives it a new punch. It really does. And it was different because it was a remix. There were things we hadn't heard before. Some ad-libs from Gillan, the occasional scream here. As I said, some songs going on slightly longer than they had before, whereas they'd been faded out at a certain point. We heard what happened after that. It was really good. At the time, I thought that Roger had done it justice. He'd got it about right. There was a respectful remix, but there was enough of a difference for it to be interesting, for the fan, for the collector. And these, either one or the other, certainly became my go-to version of Machine Head for many years to come. Certainly, night and day between the quality of either the remaster or the remix and the original CD pressing, long past the stage where I could listen to vinyl. So this kept me happy until 2012, when those marketing geniuses realized it was a 40th anniversary, and what a wonderful opportunity to make money that presented. And they went to town a little bit. A 4-disc presentation was prepared for the 40th anniversary of Machine Head. The first disc was a remaster of the album, including When a Blind Man Cries. It was a fresh effort. Again, it was remastered from the original analog tapes, so it bypassed the 97 remaster. Yes, they've done a decent job. They really have. Everything sounds as it should sound. It's well balanced. There is separation between instruments. Everybody has requisite definition. You can hear a lot. You can hear everything you think you should be hearing. This may constitute some sort of improvement, but it's very, very, I don't know, very nuanced, very subtle, I would have thought, vis-a-vis the 97 remaster and or the Roger. You can't really compare it to the Roger Glover remix, I don't suppose. But it was fine. It was all right. I mean, a remaster 15 odd years later, technology has moved on a lot, but to my ears, not really a significant improvement. I wasn't hearing anything I hadn't heard before. It sounded fine, but so did my go-to version, the 97 version. All right, disc 2 was the 1997 Roger Glover remix again, but this is absolutely identical. So if you had that, this is offering you absolutely nothing new. I've already commented on that. We can move across. We can move on. The third disc was the chord mixes of the album. I referred to earlier, there was, back in the day, a quadraphonic mix of Machine Head released. All right, I did some research on this. Now, those are my notes. The quadraphonic mix was a 70s prototype of what later developed into 5.1 surround sound, using 4 channels, hence the name. But to hear it properly, you needed the right equipment, including 4 speakers, presumably strategically placed around you. Don't have that, so whatever it offered, I'm afraid I've never heard it. However, even in a stereo mix, the sounds do become a little different, apparently. Slightly unusual. I've been told it can sound off balance, but again, when I play this, I don't really hear that. I was told that when you're listening to Smoke on the Water, the riff comes from the rear channel as opposed to being sort of in your face as it was in the front. I'd have to go back and check that, I'm afraid. But my abiding memory of this is that it was not... It was a gimmick, almost a novelty. I didn't get too excited about it, and I'm still not excited about it. Now, the fourth disc in this 2012 40th anniversary set was the second disc from the In Concert live release that came out around 1980, I think. They recorded for the BBC Radio. The first disc being a show from 1970, and the second, the one in question here, from 1972. Now, this differs from Machine Head in many ways. Well, that's Made in Japan in many ways. When they recorded Made in Japan, these Machine Head songs had been well established in the set. When they recorded this particular show, they were all very new, and I think in some cases the first time they'd ever been played. I've always really enjoyed this recording. And to be honest, in its initial release, it never sounded bad, but I think they've pepped it up a little bit here. Although I'd have to go back and do a comparison, which, once I get to the end of this and you realize exactly how many versions of Machine Head I've been listening to the last couple of days, I'm sure you'll forgive me for not doing that. But all in all, it sounds good, and I'm prepared to accept that they've did something to this in 1972 live show to improve the sound of it. And that's not something that everybody would have had, although I suppose if you're a collector, if you're watching this video, you'd have bought it. You just would have. So that was it. That was the 4 CDs that constituted the 2012 40th anniversary edition. What did I think of it? Not much. At the time, I thought it was a colossal waste of money. Really. Certainly the quadraphonic mix, whatever interest it may have, or if you have the proper equipment to play it on. It may be revelatory, I don't know. Since I can't comment on that. But the remaster itself offered nothing, really. Nothing of any particular interest or value to me. The difference between that and what I'd become more than accustomed to was just not great enough. If I'm one of those fools who will buy these things anyway, and you may also consider yourself thus if you're watching this. But no, I mean, if we were being stricter about this, there's not a release I could recommend. It really isn't. Yes, it's well packaged, nice booklet. We'll get to that later, but nope, not convinced. Well, all went quiet for 12 years. Then the news broke in 2024. For no particular reason, for this would have been the 52nd anniversary, and that is not traditionally celebrated, is it? It's not one of the landmark anniversaries, but never mind. Would have been in 2022, but skipping on. We're going to get a Dweezil Zappa remix of Machine Head. This is starting to remind me of that old joke, isn't it? Why does a dog lick its balls? Because it can. So the first question one would ask here when being presented with this news would be why. But actually I think we've just answered that. The second question that obviously, at least occurred to me, was why Dweezil Zappa? Now, as far as I know, and in real terms that means reading his Wikipedia page, he has no track record in remixing albums or anything like that. And yes, his father, the late Frank, had a very intimate connection with the recording of the album. But, does that justify his selection? It did at the time seem something like a strange choice. Had it been Steven Wilson, a la Made in Japan, Mr. Remix, well, he has the pedigree, doesn't he? It would have at least made a certain amount of sense. But, no, this was all... Before I'd heard it, I thought this was strange, shall we say. Anyway, what did we get? Well, we do get the full album, including When a Blind Man Cries, remixed by Dweezil Zappa. And I'll say off the bat, I absolutely love it. It's great, full and powerful sound to it. And certainly compared, if you go back to the original Martin Birch production, and even to the remasters, but certainly if you still have that, or you've still got the original CD pressing, wow, this is a huge difference. A few things I'd like to point out. I think John Lord on this is absolutely amazing. First noticeable on his solo on Highway Star. That's wow. I've been familiar with this song for 40 years now. And I thought, wow, this is different, and it's fucking good. But throughout, I think Lord really is much more prominent in the mix, which I think is a good thing and really enhances the material. And there is so much generally more happening here. Now you can hear it. And this takes repeated listens. I think obviously when you first spin it, it sounds different. But to get to the nuances of it, you need repeated listens. And just because, let's say, Lord has been promoted in the mix, it doesn't mean that Blackmore suffers. I know some people will be worrying about this. There's nothing to worry about. It's simply that everybody else is given equal prominence. As I have to say, was one of the features of the recent Steven Wilson Made in Japan remix. I know people were frantically complaining even. They said, oh God, no, they've almost erased Blackmore from the mix. It's not true. They hadn't. It's just that you could hear everybody else. Bass and drums on this remix sound great. They've never sounded better, I have to say. They have punch, they have feel. feels actually maybe you can almost be in the room if you close your eyes. It's just got that. It's got a really good sound to it, and you can tell the different drums. They do sound different, and the bass has got that. Yeah, it's got that punch to it, and it's well separated, well defined, and it sounds absolutely wonderful. Dweezil Zappa, I have to say, if you compare this to Roger Glover's remix, Dweezil Zappa has been much more adventurous. Which opens the question, I suppose, as to why that was. One has to assume that they were both working from the same source material. I haven't heard anything that, sort of new masters were discovered or something like that, or, that he had other things. I think it's the same 16 tracks that Roger Glover did his 1997 remix on. But again, I suppose he had been engaged to do a remix, and that by definition means he has to make it sound different to what has gone before. It can go one of two ways. Fortunately, this went the right way. I've said there's more warmth to this production. There's more power to this production. It sounds more current, and I don't mean that in a negative way, or it sounds like it could have been, produced with Pro Tools or anything like that. But it doesn't have that dated feel that the original production had. And it's not as clinical. As I said, there is more warmth to it. There's more humanity to it. Which, again, it opens up another field for speculation, does it not? Were these original Martin Birch productions as good as we've always thought they were? For example, if you listen to this, well, and I don't think this is this mix is benefiting purely from technology, is it? It's been remixed. They could have mixed it this way, unless I'm wrong here, and anybody who understands this process better than I do, feel free to correct me if I am. But this could have been mixed this way back in 1971, could it not? It's interesting, isn't it, when you think about it? I mean, Birch has a stellar reputation, and say well deserved. But now at least I think of it, there are a few fairly flat and ordinary sounding, or perhaps not very good sounding records in that discography of his. I'd say some of those early Whitesnake productions don't really sparkle, do they? And, well, I don't know. Maybe to some they do, some they don't. And I would also say Rainbow Rising, despite its classic status, never sounded that good, did it? But anyway, I digress. This does genuinely create a new experience. It remains respectful to the original. It's still obvious. The changes are not that drastic that you're wondering who or what this is. But it has enhanced it considerably while maintaining that respect to the original source material. And I don't think that's an easy balancing act. Okay. All I can say is you need to spend some time with this. You really do. Then, unfortunately, when it comes to this release as a whole, the first CD is effectively the album twice. Now, we've got 8 songs into it, about which I am unreservedly positive, the Zappa remix. We then get the whole fucking remaster again. Now, I don't know, actually, from where this was remastered. Was this, again, did this bypass the previous 2 releases, and is this an independent remaster from the source material, or is this a remaster of a remaster? I'm not 100% sure. But to cut a long story very short, I hear no noticeable difference from the 2012 remaster, and therefore, by implication, not really too many differences from the 1997 remaster. And when I'm saying I don't hear any differences, I most certainly don't hear any noticeable improvements. Nothing that would justify purchasing this, the remaster. Nothing at all. The second disc is once again, the In Concert program from 1972, which we had on the 40th anniversary edition from 2012. It sounds exactly the same to me. I don't know if they did anything to it or not. I don't know, but to me, it sounds exactly the same. And I come back to the point I've often expressed when discussing this subject. Remaster after a relatively recent remaster. I sometimes struggle to see the point, or perhaps better expressed, to understand the actual value that these things offer. This just sounds pointless to me. It sounds exactly the same as it did on the 2012 release. If something that was released in the 70s and 80s, and that was the pressing we've had, case in point, the Headless Cross and Tear, the Tony Martin-era Black Sabbath albums, we either had the original pressing from 89-90 or until 2024 when they were remastered. There's been nothing in between. The remaster sounds, yes, absolutely wonderful. But if there'd been 3 or 4 or however many remasters in between, by the time you get to 2024, I'm sorry, you're really struggling to pick up the difference. So, again, the second half of the first disc, the remaster, I'm sorry, I have no use for whatsoever. And again, since I already have the In Concert show from 1972, I have it in its original release, and I got an extra, perhaps, improved copy in the 40th anniversary release of Machine Head. Do I need it here? No, I do not. Fourth disc, however, is rather fun. It's an almost complete show taken from Montreux in 1971. Well, it hadn't been released before this, and I don't think I had it in my bootleg collection either. There are a couple of cuts in it, certainly in Speed King and in Child in Time. There may be a couple of others. Because I think it only clocks in at about an hour and 20, and they were playing longer shows than that. So, but no, the band are on fire here, and they haven't transitioned to any of the Machine Head material yet. So this is prior to Machine Head, obviously. But this was in the for example, they were still doing Mandrake Root, still doing Ring That Nick, and Child in Time still had both the organ and the guitar solo. So this was arguably when they were even better live. For shortly afterwards, perhaps as evidenced on Made in Japan, as great as the performances are, they'd been pruned back a bit. Now, the quality of this is excellent. A lot of people have, maybe I've heard some reviewers say that they can't deal with bootlegs. I don't know, some of the best-sounding Deep Purple live recordings I have been bootlegs. Yes, you get some awful ones as well. Some you're prepared to tolerate for historical interest or for a rarely played track or something like that. Some are just damn good and capture, the moment better than many live releases do. But no, this is an actually excellent addition to the set. And I really enjoy it. As I said, I've never heard this show before. I think it's obvious that there are some parts of certain songs missing. Exactly what it is missing, though, I don't know. There's another disc, which is the Blu-ray audio, featuring an array of mixes, the Dolby Atmos, whatever that is. Another quadraphonic mix. Now, since I do not possess the wherewithal on which to play this, I've got no idea what it sounds like. And, in the interests of full disclosure, that all comments I make, as was the case with the quadraphonic mix, I've never heard them as they were intended to be heard. And had I, or were I able to, I have to admit it may change my opinion on certain things, but I can't play them, so I'm not going to comment on them. Alright, so overall, what do I think of this latest re-release of Machine Head? Well, let me get the negatives out of the way first. As I said, for me, the remaster is a complete waste of time. As is, unfortunately, the Blu-ray. As I've said, if those that can listen to the Blu-ray may have a completely different opinion based on that. But the remaster, I think, it offers absolutely nothing, but you still have to pay for it. The packaging and everything, the book, it's well done, it's well made. There's nothing to complain of, but again, we all know this story so well by now. I think some of us, if we continue to have children, children will be born actually knowing the story of how Machine Head was made. It's that sort of integral, innate in us now, the purple fans. Yeah, I'm sorry. Anything in these books, and maybe a couple of photos you may not have seen, but yes, all right. In this case, we get the thoughts of Dweezil Zappa, but the story has been told that often, really. And it was told in the 2012 40th anniversary edition. It was told in the 25th anniversary edition back in 97. We've known it anyway. We know it inside out. But yes, it's put together well. They haven't skimped on it. It's not a cheap production or anything like that. It's all very good. But again, I'm just not. It doesn't really do much for me. For me, ideally, this would have been a double CD release, including only the remix and the Montreux set. And if that was that, I would fully endorse this 100%. But you cannot separate it from the rest of the stuff, which, as I have said, I don't think is particularly impressive, necessary, or justifiable. I think they're filling up space in order to justify a price tag. Do I think this remix is a game changer? Well, I certainly said the Rapture of the Deep remix was a game changer. Now, despite the criticisms I've just made of the original production, it was never one that they've only been made in hindsight. Well, the first time I heard Machine Head on vinyl, the first thing that occurred to me was not, this is an awful production, it requires a remix. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, we can see perhaps where it's been improved, but it was never one of those albums desperately crying out for a remix, was it? We all, personal tastes may differ, but we all have certain, a number of them in our head. So, is it not? I mean, is it a game changer? Well, it certainly gives you pause for thought. It's maybe not a complete game changer, but it is a more than worthy new perspective, I would say. And if I had initial doubts, which I did, about as to the suitability of Dweezil Zappa undertaking this, well, he's comprehensively erased them. As I've said, since they were released in '97, that the Roger Glover remix and the remaster have been my go-to versions, which I came to see as definitive. The anniversary edition did not deviate me from that course whatsoever. This is slightly different, I have to say, and it will be interesting to see how, in years to come, this new remix actually, how we come to see it once we've lived with it for a while. It is really different from the original mix. It is different from the series of remasters, and it is certainly different from the Roger Glover remix of '97. Again, I see it as complementary, nothing to supersede necessarily. Although, how do we know? The brave man who predicts the future. Maybe in years to come, this will be my default version of Machine Head. It'd be interesting to see how that goes. Ultimately, yes, if this had been the double CD release I indicated earlier, this would be an unqualified thumbs up. As it is, well, it's not a thumbs down. The remix on its own is just too damn good for that. So this certainly lives to fight another day if we're, think of this in gladiatorial terms. But again, that is solely based on the remix and the Montreux show. Yeah, the rest I can do without. But no, if we ignore the rest, yes, absolutely love this. However, it has to be said, you're paying an awful lot of money, for the remix of 8 songs and an almost complete live show. Because nothing else in this box set you don't have. You know the story, you've seen the photographs, and the rest of the stuff you've heard. And when it comes to the remaster, pointless. Utterly pointless. And that's his, caveat emptor. What's good here is fantastic, but you can't buy it in isolation. And I think that has to be said, and it is very much part of the evaluation and part of the review. Well, again, as I said, I'm curious, to see, come back in a couple of years and see exactly how one does feel about this. I could well imagine that this does actually go on to be the definitive release. Although, having said that, I am half expecting the Machine Head, the Infinite Anniversary Edition in 2027, complete with a remaster of the remix for the discerning fool with too much cash to burn. Yes, that's us. Well, okay, that's my view. I don't think there are any more Deep Purple remixes to torment me. Not in the foreseeable future. So, I've had one I'm utterly in favour of. One, not so sure about. And this, again, as I said, if I could have just had it, those 2 bits, I'd have been, again, utterly in favour of it. But, again, I have to say it again. You're paying a lot for the remix of 8 songs and one almost complete live show, as good as they are. Well, what do you think? We've all heard it now. It's been with us for a year at least. Let me know. Please feel free to share, to like, to subscribe, all those good things, and to comment. And, as always, I thank you for your indulgence. And until next time, I wish you well, and Maçhonquèrre.